When you think of intelligence, you think of someone who's highly intelligent. What characteristics spring to mind? How would you describe them? You might see them as bright, curious, sharp, quick-witted, quick-minded. That's just to name a few. Now, who springs to mind? So you've thought about the characteristics, but what person? Because likely there is someone in your social circle, in your network, with who you work, that you go, yeah, they are really smart. We all have a view as to what intelligence looks like. We're also socialized into a certain way of seeing intelligence, and often it can be quite narrowly defined. So we might think of the intelligent person as the researcher who uncovers that groundbreaking scientific discovery. It could be the person who holds in their memory, can store lots of facts and data, which they can just pull out really quickly in a discussion. It might be the gifted orator who uses verbal reasoning and narratives to inspire the people around them. Our view of what intelligence looks like, it can differ. And that's one of the reasons why I really like the work of Howard Gardner. And he shares a really interesting perspective on intelligence because he takes a broad perspective on it. Now, Howard Gardner is a research professor of cognition and education at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. And he believes intelligence is a capacity to process certain kinds of information in particular ways. And it's this processing of the information that enables us to solve problems, create solutions in a way that matters to people. Now, he's developed a theory of what he calls multiple intelligences, of which there are 8 categories. So firstly, there's musical, and a person who has musical intelligence is someone who has sensitivity to rhythm and sounds in their environment. You know, they like music. Then there's a person who it's bodily, it's kinesthetic, and this type of person can move their body effectively. They've got a real keen sense of movement. They like moving, they like making things, they like touching stuff. Then there's the logical, the mathematical person, and this is someone who can solve problems really rapidly. They're able to reason, calculate, rationalize, think conceptually. They can explore patterns and relationships. They might like solving puzzles and trying to figure things out. They like experimenting. Then there's linguistic, and this is a person who can use words really effectively. They've got highly developed auditory skills. They like reading. They like playing word games, making up poetries, writing stories. Then there's spatial. So we think of spatial, it's about space. They like working through their physical space. They like being aware of the environment that they're in. They might like doing things like jigsaw puzzles. They might like reading maps. Then there's interpersonal. And a person with this type of characteristic can notice contrasts in moods, motivations. They can understand what other people are doing. Then there's intrapersonal. So interpersonal and then intrapersonal. And this is the person who's got a strong understanding of self, of their own core feelings, their own motivations. And they can use all of that to guide their behavior. And then number 8 is naturalistic. And this is a person who is really able to nurture and relate information to the nature of the environment in which they're in. They can recognize elements in nature, and they can understand the nature of the environment, that natural world, and then use that to their advantage. Now, he's written a book on this called Multiple Intelligences. So if you're interested in more, it is worth reading. Fortunately, for each of us as humans, we don't just rely on one of those 8. We will have many of those intelligences. And so then they combine in each of us in a unique way. And it's worth understanding that to see how those elements come together for you. For example, if you're a computer programmer or an app designer, you're going to use things like linguistic, mathematical, and also spatial. If you're a history teacher, you're going to use linguistic and interpersonal. A dancer is going to use a mixture of the kinesthetic and the musical. The challenge is, across society, we can have quite a narrow view of what intelligence looks like, and we give preference to different types of intelligences. And Gardner suggests that it's the linguistic, that logical, mathematical, those two types of intelligence that are given preeminence, that are seen as more valued, more important, and consequently we can discard the other forms of intelligence as less intelligent, less worthy, less important, less worth paying our attention to. A number of months ago, I was listening to Scott Barry Kaufman, who's a cognitive scientist, and I love his work. And he was speaking on the Hidden Brain podcast, and he was explaining how standard IQ tests don't measure all forms of intelligence equally, and particularly don't measure creativity. So if you want to feel a bit smarter this morning, or whenever you're listening to this podcast, go and listen to that podcast because it'll make you feel good about yourself. Because he really challenges us to think about how we define intelligence and to not judge too quickly, to categorize people and kind of box them in. Professor of Clinical Neuropsychology from Cambridge University, Barbara Jacqueline Sucken, and her colleagues reminds us that some of the greatest achievements that we've achieved as a species have primarily related to qualities such as creativity, imagination, curiosity, and empathy. And so that means one of the important things that we need to think about is not just skills like that, but also things like cognitive flexibility. This is the ability to switch between ideas, to challenge ourselves, to recognize what type of intelligence we need to use in the context in which we're working. Now, when we're cognitively flexible, we can be more adaptive and more creative when we're solving problems. For me, it's also about context. Context matters. Different types of intelligence are relevant, are more useful in different environments. And to achieve the best outcomes, to make the progress that you're looking for, it's worth really digging into that and challenging yourself in that moment to go, what's the context? What intelligence, what skills do I need in this environment? What skills might I need to really brush up and learn more about? The lovely thing, intelligence, it's not static. Sure, I think, there are more people who are more attuned to intelligence than another. But you can hone, you can refine, you can develop your skills. And your intelligence can advance and evolve as the environment in which you're in advances, shifts, evolves too. So, the last thing to think about is the great quote by Howard Gardner when he said, "If you think education is expensive, try estimating the cost of ignorance." The choice is yours. What type of intelligence do you want to nurture, cultivate, grow within you? Take care. Have a great day.